2, 3, 4.
The smiles returning to the faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. I say it's alright.
Hi everyone, this is a video that I've been waiting a while to do and I'm very excited to do it. It's a classic song and I didn't even realize it had synthesizer on it for decades. I listened to this song, when it first came out and I just love the song. Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. Now, when I found out it had synthesizer on it, I had to delve into it and see what's going on. And it took a little bit of critical listening. But now I can't imagine the song without synthesizer. And a bit of history about the synthesizer in that song. Well, this particular Moog was shipped just 6 days after the Beatles' Moog was shipped. And their Moog was a little bit different. This is a 3C, which has 3 cabinets, and they're wood cabinets. Theirs is a 3P, which has the black portable cabinets, and they're more vertical. So they're like set up next to each other like that, like wing A, wing B, and wing C. 1969. So this was shipped in January of 1969 on the 21st, and the Beatles were shipped on January 15th of 1969. So just 6 days apart. So all the components in here are pretty much the same sound. So when I do a breakdown on Here Comes the Sun on this Moog, it's as if we're channeling the sounds from that Beatles synthesizer, the Moog 3P. So these lines just kind of sing along with the arrangement. And maybe George Harrison did this arrangement, maybe George Martin did this arrangement. I'm not really sure what was going on with the Beatles, but it's indicative of a very orchestral type of arrangement. So a lot of synthesizers back in 1969 were used in that kind of way. They were replacing maybe some orchestral instruments that would be typically used. And even in this song, there's one area in the song where there's no synth and then there's woodwinds playing. So these sound kind of like woodwind sounds. So they're almost replacing it, but then they just left some oboes and flutes in another part of the song. So it's interesting how they just preferred it there and then really, I think, enjoyed the uniqueness of the synthesizer. So I think it's time to bring you guys in and then let's take a dive into how this sound is created. So on the Moog modular, it looks a little bit intimidating, but I'm going to just look at this one area here. This is a set of oscillators, and these oscillators say 921A, 921B, 921B, 921B. So essentially, I have 3 oscillators. The B 921s are oscillators and 1 driver. So it's as simple as this. The driver controls the frequency of all the oscillators at the same time, and then these knobs control the frequencies of just each individual oscillator. And 921 is a special oscillator that was brought into the picture after 1969, a little bit later, probably at the same time as the Beatles did this. These oscillators stay in tune a little bit more, so I'm using them, and they're very similar to the oscillators on a mini Moog, but they still have the sound of the old Moogs. So let's see what we have. I hear square waves. So I have a rectangle wave from oscillator 1, I'm calling this oscillator 1, and a rectangle wave from oscillator 2. So what I do is listen to the pulse width of the rectangular wave. I can get it skinny. See how I'm changing? Let me bring it down in frequency so you can hear it better. Hear the tone color differences? And if I make it brighter, you hear it even better. So right there, see how it kind of gets pure? That's where it sounds like a square wave. So I basically, by changing this pulse width, both of these rectangle waves now are square waves. Into a mixer, and now let's look really closely down here. The critical part of this is the balance of the 2 oscillators, because one of them is a really high frequency, really high. That's this one, the second oscillator. So I have it at full volume, and then I bring in just a little bit of oscillator 1. Not very much, so it's a 3 out of 10. That would be 10. And I'm really down here. Critical setting. Then the output of the mixer just goes into a filter. I don't have very much range, and that range is the amount of ADSR envelope generator right here that's modulating the filter. So if I have a lot, bring it down low, a little. So there's just a little bit. Here's without it, nothing. You would rely just on the filter cutoff frequency. But I want a little bit of articulation. So I have the range of the modulation down low to 1. And the filter initial frequency is down kind of low, like these are arbitrary numbers, but like -3. This is 0. That's kind of how they center the frequency. And then a lot of resonance. Here's without resonance. Without resonance. With resonance. See, it thins the sound out a little. And then it's very simple what's going on. The rest of the patch, output of the filter into the VCA. VCA is closed. And then envelope generator 2 is controlling the VCA. So it's into the control input. You can see it right there. And envelope generator 1, I did patch that into the filter. So now the patch is complete. And then the last thing is the output of the VCA is going into this 4-channel mixer down here. And it's just going in mono, right? So I have one input right here, and then I'm sending it out to channel 1 right there. And these knobs are really important too, because if I push them, you can kind of get distortion. And also down here in the preamp, or the mixer. You hear that? You hear that buzz? I'll make it brighter. And if I bring it down, it gets rid of it. And we're up high. So we want a very pure sound. So it creates a very pure sound that way. And the expression comes from a low frequency oscillator that's located way up here in the top corner. You can see that. And I just run it into low frequency where it says low, and I picked a sine wave, right? You have 4 choices: sawtooth, sine, pulse, and triangular. So coming out of the sine wave output into an attenuator, and then this attenuator feeds this VCO, which is the driver, so it'll send it to both oscillators at the rate of this LFO. Right? So I'm going to have it at vibrato speed. And we're up here. And you can hear it kind of detuning a little. Let me get it back. Hear that? Pure again. So that's the whistle sound that you heard take us all the way to the ending. And it carries the song out. And it's kind of a beautiful top layer, like icing, that just enhances the different sections. And I especially like where it plays like with the strings and it goes. And then you get a melodic section. And then again with the strings. And then repeats. And then the chords change, a little vibrato, out to the end. It's really special to be able to recreate the synthesizer parts in Here Comes the Sun, a Beatles song from 1969 with a 1969 model synthesizer. Even more important than that, how they fit into the arrangement and made this song that I always thought was an organic song, but there was always something special about it, and I think it has something to do with the synthesizers and as well as some of the unusual characteristics of the song. So, let me show you what that is actually. And I'm going to hold this up. Maybe you can see it. Come in here. So most songs are in 4/4, right? Da 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But when we get to this part, this buzzy sound, it sounds like it's in time, right? But we come out of a 4/4 section. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So maybe it's George Harrison, you know, being influenced by Indian music, but you don't even notice it. And it's just, you know, I was trying to tell you what's special about the song, and then I forgot to mention this part, and it just flows right through, just like the synthesizers. But there's some odd meters in the song that kind of harken to sort of an Indian vibe or an Eastern thing, and it all makes for something unique. Quick interruption. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. We read your comments. They really mean a lot to us. And if you want to go deeper into synthesis, please check out my course, Think Like a Synth. It's right now 24 lessons, and we just added 3 more lessons that are going to be coming out this month. And it's going to take a deep dive into synthesis to take you up to the next level. I know that if you follow this course, you'll learn the exact method that I learned a long time ago, used for 40 years on hit records and films, and I still use today. I use it on this video. This is how I make sounds. This is how I listen and translate all those sound waves into images of synthesizer sounds. And I'm able to make those synthesizer sounds really quickly. A lot of times without even hearing the sound, I can get to like 85%, and then I can dial it in. So check out the course when you get a minute, and let's get back to the video. So now I'm going to show you what I'm calling the main lead that comes in at bar 33 of the song. And it's very similar to the whistle sound that's at the end, but there's more ADSR envelope modulation of the filter. So what that means, like the whistle sound was more subtle and it was up high, and it had just a little bit of the low octave, right? So now we have more of the low octave Going up to the filter, we have less open filter and more modulation from the ADSR envelope generator, which is over here. And what happens with the sound, you hear it kind of decay a little bit. It's bright, and then it comes down just a little bit. So you can play legato, right? So I can play bright, and if I play legato, it's just a little bit not as bright. And that's really the basic difference in the sound. So, you know, who knows what happened? Maybe they just got to that later and the sound was a little bit different, or they purposefully changed it a little bit. So it's basically the same sound with the lower octave a little hotter, right? The whole part is played in a lower octave too. And then the filter is pumping a little bit more because there's more ADSR envelope generator modulation to the filter, and then the filter is a little more closed because the ADSR envelope generator is opening the filter. And everything else is basically the same, except maybe in the ADSR envelope generator, you can control the sustain of the sound here with the sustain voltage of the ADSR envelope. See, wherever I set it, that'll be at the sustain level. So you want it to be not full bright, because then I wouldn't be able to get any dynamics. If it's down here, this way when I play legato, it's duller, and then it's a little bit brighter when I first play it. So if you play new notes each time, you keep re-triggering it, you're always firing the filter with the ADSR envelope generator, notes stay bright. If you play legato, you're not firing it, and you'll just be at the sustain level, and the sound's a little duller. So there's two more sounds in this song. The first sound only plays in the beginning. There's an intro. George Harrison plays the guitar. First of all, he counts it off, plays a little guitar intro for 4 bars, and then the sound just comes in over the same intro. So it just kind of escalates the sound a little bit. So when you listen to Here Comes the Sun, the synth is right at the beginning. So you'll hear it there, and this sound is not like the other sounds. So let me show you how this one's made.
2, 3, 4.
So the intro sound is totally different than all the other sounds. And it's comprised of 3 triangle waves in unison. So it's kind of like the classic Moog sound, because anytime you get more than one oscillator in unison on these modular synths, there's something that's going on with the detuning when they're just not perfect that makes the sound something special, something with a lot of personality and very Moog. So here it is. And I got these oscillators pretty well in tune. So that's the sound. Let's break it down. I'll go into the mixer. That's the first thing I'm going to do. So I'm turning down the volume of the second and third oscillator. So I have oscillator 1, oscillator 2, oscillator 3, all on a knob, volume knob, right? So oscillator 1, there we go, full up. Bring in oscillator 2. Bring in oscillator 3. You hear how they chorus? Something totally unique. So no other synth parts in the song have this sound. And I'm using 3 triangle waves, oscillator 1, oscillator 2, oscillator 3, not rectangular waves set to be square, like in the other sounds, right? And they're all in unison. You can see 16 foot, 16 foot, 16 foot here. And the settings in the filter are a little bit different too. The frequency range is full, which means I'm getting the maximum ADSR envelope generator modulation of the filter that the Moog will allow. And I'm still opening the filter. If I didn't, that's what you'd get. Because these triangle waves don't have a lot of, overtones, right? They're like sine waves with odd ordered harmonics, like a square wave, except at much lower levels, at exponentially declining overtones. That's what makes up a triangle wave. So I want to get the filter a little bit brighter. Crank up the resonance. Here's no resonance. thins the sound a little bit, makes it talk a little bit. And then over here in the ADSR envelope generator, I have no attack time and just a little bit of attack time, slower attack time in the volume envelope, just because I want to take a little bit of the pop off. Like if I don't have it, you hear that pop, right? If I take, what I'm doing is lengthening the attack time of the envelope generator that's controlling the VCA, so I can back off those pops. So you hear the popping, now I'll back them off. There you go. So they're still there, but it takes a little bit of the edge off. And I can probably do that with a little bit of the release time too. That helps. And the last component of the sound is when it gets to the last note of the phrase. And that's the intro sound. So there's one more sound that we have to get to, and it's as interesting as that one. It only happens once in the song too, over a few more bars, but it's almost like a distorted guitar. We're calling it the Buzzy synth bass. So let's get to that one. So this sound is really different from all the other sounds, and it's a ripping sound. And when I first heard it, I thought they were running maybe the synth through a guitar amp, right? But I managed to get it because this Moog can do things like a guitar amp. And the simple way to do that is when you crank the knobs in the mixer, and you crank the knobs, that's in this bottom mixer. I crank the knobs, you can see they're all on 10. I have 3 oscillators. Oops, this guy's about 9.3, but 1 and 2 are on 10. And then we come over to this mixer, I've got this knob cranked and the output knob cranked, and then there's actually a treble and a bass controller, and I have the treble jacked up to about 8. Now let's hear what this sounds like. So you see it's almost like a distorted, ripping sound. And the way I'm doing it is with 3 triangle waves in unison. So here's the unison. The range is set to 16 foot, 16 foot, and 16 foot. And I have 3 rectangle waves from first oscillator, another rectangle wave from the second oscillator, and another rectangle wave from the third oscillator. And each one is going into the mixer. And like I showed you before, the mixers are cranked. Let's just crank this one anyway. Input 3. And then the mixer goes up to the filter. The filter, look where the filter is. Cranked, wide open. Filter range, cranked, all the way to 3. Resonance. And I'm using the ADSR envelope generator. You can see that it's patched in to control the filter. And what's going on here? Well, there's a decay. And basically, it's just sustaining because you're not really getting much out of the envelope generator because it's just fully sustaining. I mean, that's what the envelope is doing. But by the time you sustain this thing all the way open, you're mostly just hearing a wide open filter. So that's why you're getting this nastiness. And then it's hitting the envelope. That filter output is hitting this VCA at pretty hot levels. So there's going to be a little bit of distortion going on there. And then the output, like I showed you from the VCA, goes into this mixer, everything cranked. And then here's the difference with the treble control. Here's neutral. You hear it? That brightness I'm bringing in? That buzz, that sizzle. We can probably go all the way. I did back it off just a little bit. And you hear the beating of the oscillators. Let's take one more look over here. Oscillator 1 is going to sound, you know, straight ahead. Now I'll bring in oscillator 2. Now oscillator 3 is making it wicked. I'm going to tune it a little bit better. There we go. And here's the final product. So you put it all together and you orchestrate these synth sounds, and in the arrangement, when this low guy comes in, it plays by itself, then it plays the same octave again, and then that higher main sound comes in an octave above, then this bass moves up one more to this range, with the other one up an octave, and then this raspy bass leaves the arrangement, and then you're left with just the higher main sound all by itself. So it's like a classical orchestration. Things just layer in, start with the low, then they both play, then they go up an octave, and then just the high one. Utilize these techniques in your music today. That's the point of this. Let's bring it forward. You know, the stuff you hear in that the sounds and the arrangement that you hear in this that you like, bring it forward into your music. Pick off one little thing. Maybe, you know, a little odd meter here or there, or a distorted synth, you know, cranking through the preamps or running through a guitar amp, right? And feather your arrangement so that you go from low to high, or change the synth sound. Like these synth sounds are similar, some of the other sounds, and they change a little bit. All that make up for what we call music. So blessings to all of you. Stay with us. More videos ahead, more breakdowns ahead. We love you all.